Galakrond was a gigantic proto-dragon renowned as the progenitor of dragonkind, according to legend. He was a menace that 5 proto-dragons of various colors banded together to combat. It is stated that the Titans created the aspects from him, although this is a lie spread by the aspects to keep the truth about Galakrond hidden from the dragonflights. Galakrond's stature alone was greater than all of the aspects put together, making him the only possible entity to compare him to. His roar could be heard for miles, and the flapping of his wings created a tremendous wind. Galakrond developed terrible mutations all over his body, including limbs and even eyeballs, as he continued to absorb the life energies of his fellow proto-dragons, and his skin began to deteriorate, almost as if he had become an undead like his victims. Galakrond wasn't always this big, and he used to have a more streamlined, smoother form. His mutations were induced by cannibalism of other proto-dragons, and his victims returned as undead, known as the Not Living, as a result of his absorption of the proto-dragon's life force. Galakrond, who was formerly a benevolent proto-dragon who hunted with his other proto-dragons, transformed into a terror who terrified the other proto-dragons in prehistoric Azeroth. While the proto-dragons were unsure what caused Galakrond's mutations, Watcher Tyr's ambiguous language suggests that he is to blame for Galakrond's activities and mutations because things did not go according to Tyr's plan. Galakrond arrived and seized their prey on the day that many had assembled to hunt, scaring them all. Malygos, a blue-white proto-dragon, wondered why Galakrond would hunt in that location when he had never done so before, to which his new companion Eltharion replied because there was more food. Malygos, on the other hand, was quick to point out that the food was his. Galakrond also began devouring dozens of other proto-dragons, which the others found unfathomable because they did not practice cannibalism. The horror did not end there, as Galakrond's cannibalized victims emerged as undead, known as the Not Living, and were enslaved to his will. The Not Living followed Galakrond's orders and tracked after their living counterparts, infecting those who bit them. Koros, a proto-dragon, aspired to be like Galakrond, believing that Galakrond would not devour anyone who looked like him. To accomplish this, Koros would meet with Galakrond in secret and inform him of the time and location which Talonixa, the selected alpha of the living proto-dragons, had determined for the proto-dragon army to assault Galakrond. Galakrond flew away, presumably spared Koros and his fellow comrades, seemingly happy with his intelligence and the prospect of the feast he would prepare. Galakrond, however, returned as Koros and his band flew into the sky and devoured them all. Despite Talonixa knowing of Koros' treason and striking at a different location and time, Galakrond was able to entice the proto-dragon to him using non-living powers. When the army was in position, Galakrond emerged from the ground and shattered it. Galakrond was unable to consume the armies fast after murdering Talonixa due to the acts of Malygos, Nosdormu and Eltharion. Galakrond ended up fighting the future aspects while Malygos went out to find Ysera and Alexstrasza, only to be driven off by Tyr after being stunned by his hammer. Tyr met with the 5 proto-dragons at an unknown time later, informing them that Galakrond was sleeping in a mountain range to the north, and that now was the best time to attack. Tyr and the others gathered near Galakrond's slumbering location to eat and regain their strength before fighting the behemoth. Tyr's hammer and the spark of Tyr were knocked loose from his person during the conflict, and when he reached out to collect the spark, Galakrond's gigantic maw came within range and snatched both the artifact and Tyr's hand. Galakrond was so pleased with his win that he didn't even notice when his opponents had fled the battle. Galakrond was unable to find prey after regaining his senses, since the living had become excellent at concealing. Galakrond began to devour his own Not Living, as they were the only thing that would not hide from him as his hunger grew. This astonished and surprised the future aspects. Galakrond was able to show control despite his hunger by preserving enough Not Living to serve as reconnaissance forces for his favorite prey, live proto-dragons. In what would become known as the Dragonflight, Galakrond and his last Not Living soldiers would be assailed by the future aspects. Malygos was able to lodge a boulder in Galakrond's throat during the conflict, forcing Galakrond to focus his energy on dislodging it rather than fighting the others, and forcing him to lose his grip on the remaining Not Living, who then began attacking one another. Despite his best attempts, Malygos' icy breath would keep the boulder in place, and the boulder would eventually become stuck further down Galakrond's neck when Eltharion fired a not living into it, forcing Galakrond to choke to death. The aspects supported the notion that the Titans created them from Galakrond in order to keep the truth about Galakrond hidden so that others would not follow in his footsteps. Bunic, a Tonka, was attempting to show herself worthy of her spouse Akiak more than 10,000 years later. Trag High Mountain and Akiak discovered her body among the wreckage of Galakrond in Dragonblight. Trag was able to recover a bone fragment from his body. He saw its potential and decided to take it with him. The Lich King afterwards tasked Grand Necrolord Antioch with leading an effort to raise Galakrond to undeath. Adventurers foiled these ambitions by killing Antioch and ending his rituals. The Twilight's Hammer used Galakrond's boneyard as an assault site against Thrall and his comrades when Deathwing assaulted Wormer's temple for the second time. Caligos discovered the Spark of Tyr, and later Tyr's hand within Galakrond's skeleton after a meeting between the previous aspects. The relic gave Caligos images of the past, causing him to discover the truth about Galakrond. Jaina Proudmoore traveled to Galakrond's bones in search of a solution to help her love with Kalek was shaken by these visions. In their explorations of Galakrond's skeleton, both Kalek and Jaina came across the spirit of the Tonka Bunic. Jaina theorized her to be Tyr in disguise. Kalek imagined he saw Tyr standing at Galakrond's rest after activating the artifact to remind the other former aspects of their duty. In Hearthstone, Galakrond, like Cthulhu from Whispers of the Old Gods, is the principal antagonist of the Descent of Dragons expansion for Hearthstone. Galakrond is represented by the League of Evil as 5 separate hero cards for each class, and a new mechanism, Invoke, immediately upgrades him into a more powerful version. The following are the hero cards that symbolize him. Heist Baron Togwaggle raised Rogue Galakrond, the Nightmare, and injected him with venom. The huge creature unfurled terrible claws dripping with toxic ichor, according to the flavor text on his card. The giant Nightmare refused to wear the torch, which pleased King Togwaggle but disappointed him inwardly. Swamp Queen Hagatha raised Shaman Galakrond, the Tempest, with the power of the elements. Truly, you are as powerful as the Maelstrom, Hagatha said over the gusts. I am the Maelstrom, the Tempest said. Blastmaster Boom reared Warrior Galakrond, the Unbreakable, and equipped him with sophisticated armor. Text for flavor. With over 400 tons of solid storm silver plate, Dr. Boom said as the ground shook beneath the beast. He then beeped a little remote control, and high-end spikes. The unspeakable priest Galakrond was reared by Madame Lazul, and corrupted by the old gods. Lazul called Galakrond's name, her voice reverberated in the depths by whispers. Galakrond's eyes both opened, and soon others followed suit. Galakrond the Wretched is a warlock who was raised by arch-villain Rafam using fell magic. Flavor text. Fell flames wrapped themselves around the skeleton, slowly forming a hellish monstrosity out of the massive bones. Rafam tried to keep his face cool, but he couldn't disguise his grin. Galakrond becomes Galakrond the Apocalypse when improved for the first time, and Galakrond Azeroth's End when upgraded for the second time. And now some speculation. Magic. Galakrond became mutated as he began ingesting Proto-Dragon's life essence. He began to inhale a sickening green mist that Malygos described as slow death and reminded him far too much of that breathed by the not living. Those who were exposed to the mist became either lethargic or violent, as if their life was slowly evaporating. This has similarities to fell magic, which is formed by destroying life energy and manifests as entropic green, creating demonic mutations in those who are exposed to it, as well as making humans more violent or lethargic at times. Richard A. Knack remarked that he liked the idea of Galakrond being affected by Fel because it fits with what he understands about Fel, but that Blizzard told him to keep the green stuff a secret. When questioned if Galakrond was affected by Fel energy, Mickey Nielsen answered that he believes it was simply sickness. It is also plausible that the old gods were involved, given they're known for corruption and mutation, and Yogg-influenced Sarons can be found throughout Northrend. The energy could have been linked to the green stones Yogg-Saron and Serenite, or to evil necromantic power, which is commonly linked to sickness. Galakrond was a tool of the old gods, according to an unused quote from Xalathath, Blade of the Black Empire, in Legion. A strong dragon may be an effective instrument, Galakrond's days are sadly over. Given how the not living appeared and Galakrond's skin began to rot, it could have been some sort of death magic. Green death magic can be found in places like the unholy specialty for Death Knights. This issue could be linked to his various Hearthstone forms mentioned earlier. And that is the story of Galakrond. Thank you for listening, and I will see you next time.